Hi, I'm.
Once you know it's for real,
I know.
you're like,
Okay, let's stop. Hi, I'm Kirsten Jones.
and I'm Susie Walton.
And this is our podcast, #Raising Athletes with Kirsten and Susie.
Our passion is supporting parents and raising not only strong athletes, but extraordinary people.
Join us each week as we tackle all topics youth sports, including everything from early specialization and overuse injuries
to helping our kids feel empowered and learn how to advocate for themselves, not only in the classroom and on the court, but at dinner tables and in their communities.
We'll be talking to coaches, athletes, parents,
and anyone else who will speak to us
about their experiences with youth sports and their paths to success.
And even more importantly, their failures. Yes, we're going to get into the gritty details of what went wrong so that we can all learn from it. Teach our kids
and ourselves
how to do better next time.
Because in the words of Maya Angelou, when you know better, you do better. So welcome to Raising Athletes, because we love to win too.
Let's do this.
Hello, welcome to the Raising Athletes podcast. My name is Kirsten Jones. I'm a peak performance and sports parenting coach and a newly minted author of 6 months, Raising Empowered Athletes. Go grab it wherever books are sold. You can find it. I've been doing this podcast for 5 years now with the amazing Susie Walton, because we love helping parents, coaches, athletes, everybody who's involved in sports figure out, what are the ways that we can do this better. And today's guest is going to be so much fun. I can't wait to talk to Shelby, because she grew up in and still lives in my home state of Montana, which I have a very soft place in my heart. And she's done it all. She's been a multi-sport athlete and is at the top of her sport right now. So Shelby Schweyen, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to chat with you.
Oh, I really appreciate you having me on, and I'm excited to chat as well.
Yay. So I like to start at the beginning. Before we jumped on, I gave her a little context because she's probably like, who's this person reaching out to me? But I saw your mom post, that you had a huge win in the indoor championships last weekend. Was that right?
Yes, this past weekend. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
In Spokane, Washington.
Amazing. So she's been not triathlete. How would you label yourself? Just track and field athlete.
Yeah, track and field, a multi-sport. Yeah, multi-athlete.
Multi-sport. But do you do individually all of those sports, or are you always just doing this one event?
So how it works is the pentathlon is what I competed in this indoor season. You are constantly training the 5 events through your training block. Then in a few meets a year, you compete in the pentathlon as one event. There's only a few pentathlons every season. So
Okay, good. That wasn't a silly question.
Yeah,
okay.
No, a lot of people are confused on how it works. It's definitely a tricky thing that not a lot of people know a lot about. So definitely not a silly question.
Okay, good. Yeah. So that was my assumption, but I wasn't sure. I know things have changed since middle school, which was the last time I did track and field. So, but I would love to talk to you about your journey. One of the biggest things we talk about here a lot is the best athletes play multiple sports, and as you see, 92% of NFL players played multiple sports growing up. In fact, I was told when I got to college, you're not a very good volleyball player, but you're a good athlete. And I had played softball and basketball and skied and swam and kind of done all the things. And what we see now with kids when they're really little is you only do one thing and you start doing it really young. And I think one of the beauties of growing up in a place like Montana is you get opportunities to play multiple sports. In fact, I know you spent your summers on a lake even, right? So,
yes.
So doing all the things. So let's talk about your childhood. When did you start playing? What are your primary memories of starting sports?
So growing up, I played basketball starting from a young age. Obviously, my mom being the athlete she was. We also did soccer.
Wait, shout out to Shannon. She was an All-American, right? Basketball player, and went on to coach the Lady Griz. I played against her in high school. She was the stud, who then went on to choose to play for Montana and then coach ultimately at the University of Montana. So, go ahead.
Yeah, so basketball We played a lot of soccer growing up. I think I did soccer until about 8th grade, or middle school.
What level of
And
soccer were you playing? AYSO or like
it wasn't anything
YMCA?
crazy, just kind of like local. We honestly did YMCA for the most part. So it wasn't super competitive, but we had a good group of girls and it was always fun. And I really enjoyed soccer. But in 6th grade is when I started playing volleyball. And after I started playing volleyball, I had to say goodbye to soccer because I knew in high school that volleyball was a sport that I wanted to play in the spring or in the fall.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, basketball, volleyball, track, and soccer growing up. Honestly, a little bit of everything. There's a Missoula Youth Track Club in Missoula, and they've done a phenomenal job over the years. I mean, I grew up a kid going there every season, and then through high school, I got the chance to give back and coach it all through high school and coach all the little kids and up-and-coming tracksters. So there's
what events did you do originally?
Originally I was always, I liked the sprints. So about like the 100, 200 meters, long jump, and then high jump. I never did hurdles actually because my younger sister in middle school had an accident. She was in a hurdle race, came out, fell over, tripped over the hurdles, caught herself with her hands, fell into last place, got back up and finished the race and almost won. And turns out she broke both of her arms. So after that, my mom was like, no hurdling, we're done with that. So
you were like, fine.
Yeah.
And then on to the high school. Did you play club sports in high school? And what sports did you play in season?
Yeah. In high school, I did volleyball, basketball, and track, along with club volleyball and club basketball. Going into, I was a multi-sport athlete in high school, and I was very successful in all three. We had a couple state championships between them. In basketball, we were runners up a few years in a row. And honestly, when I was in high school, the volleyball coaches at were talking to me, and they wanted me to come play for them. And obviously my mom was recruiting me as well. And with my dad coaching, I mean, I wanted to do basketball and track, and the volleyball coaches wanted me to do volleyball. And so that's why I did club. The head coach at University of Montana was also a club coach. And so I was on her club team my freshman year. So, I mean, in high school, it would be, I think I might have even have driver's ed in the morning some days, but driver's ed like 6 to 8 o'clock or 7:30 when school started, school all day. And then when school's out at 3, I'd have basketball practice from 3:30 to 5:30, and then like a couple nights a week go to club volleyball practice afterwards. So it was very busy, but I always had a lot of fun with it. And
so can I stop you there? Because one of the biggest things I hear all the time with parents now who are like, yeah, my kid is great at 2 or 3 sports, but the coaches won't allow it. Did you take heat from the coaches? Were there parents that were like not happy that Shelby could miss a practice here or there and still get the opportunity to play? Do you have recollections of how that went?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's always a tricky situation. I mean, I get it from a coach's perspective. You don't want your athletes participating in other things where they could get hurt and then you lose them. So it definitely was kind of a struggle with basketball to do club volleyball. I mean, I know Karen was not super excited about me doing club volleyball. But it's just a tough battle.
Shout out Karen Deaton.
Yeah, shout out Karen, but I know she didn't like it.
And her coach. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough though, because I understand that you don't want them getting hurt, but I do truly think that being a multi-sport athlete is so important. I mean, between volleyball, basketball, and track, they're all very different sports, but lessons you learn or motions you run or things you do in other sports translate to all others. And overall, it just built like you become a much better or more well-rounded athlete and learn lots of skills that you can through playing one sport. And yeah, some of the parents, I mean, there's always like frustrated parents everywhere you go. That's not just unique to certain areas or certain places. For sure. I mean, there's ups and downs along the ways and people had their own opinions about things, but for the most part, I was able to do what I wanted, which was nice. I still got to play volleyball and do basketball. And then come my sophomore year, that was when the volleyball coaches had finally set up a meeting and I was going to go in and talk with them about, what the future would look like, potentially going to and playing 3 sports. And we had a basketball game the night before against Columbia Falls. And I think it was with about 5 minutes into the first quarter, I was closing out on a 3-point shooter from the key, jumped up and kind of tripped. And as I was landing, I turned to watch the shot and my leg hit in a funky way. And right away, I knew my ACL was torn. So that was the first of my injuries and it was a rough night. I know some girls like tear theirs or maybe don't necessarily know what it is right away. And I knew right when mine went exactly what it was. And just knowing that the rest of my season was over in basketball, I wasn't going to be able to participate in track, and just overall the whole mental side of that kind of started seeping in. And then the next day I had to crutch my way into the volleyball coach's office. So we sat down and had a chat, and I just remember fighting back tears the whole time. I didn't want to go because I was so sad about my ACL, and my dad and mom were like, you got to go. This is your future and you got to go talk to them, and it's going to suck. And I know you're sad right now, but we're going to get through this and it's going to be okay. So I went in there and sat down with them and talked, and they just kind of told me that they had known of a girl who was at some school in Oregon who was playing 5 sports in college. And they're like, if she can do 5, you can do 3. And they're like, we're going to, fix practice time so that we can get a moment with you. Your dad can get you, your mom can get you. We're all going to work together, but we want you here doing 3. And this is, what we want. And I was totally on board too, because I loved playing sports and I loved all 3 of them. And it was always hard to choose which one I was going to want to do in college. So to have that opportunity was super special. I mean, the chance to compete for both of my parents in college, I don't think many kids ever get the chance to do that. And I was, super excited about it.
You must have amazing executive functioning skills, like planning and organization. Like, are you one of those people, like, you eat at 3:00 and you go to bed, like in order to fit all of that in a day, right? Like, you must be super organized. Is that like just how you are?
I like to think I am. It's definitely been a work in progress. I mean, over the past couple of years, my time management skills, I will say, are pretty good. It's definitely something you learn as an athlete, especially multi-sport athlete, Like this year I have practices at 7:00 every day. So I'm up at 5:30. That's when I start my day and get my coffee and breakfast going. And then I have class all day. And between classes, I'm always grinding, trying to do homework. And then I have lift and have to come home and do homework for a little bit. I also tutor, and it's just, my day is jam-packed all the way through. So definitely it's been a really helpful skill and tool that I'll get to use the rest of my life.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go back. So you have that discussion. They're still doors wide open. They're not dissuaded by the ACL. They're like, no big deal.
Yeah. I don't think at the time. And then came back my junior year, and coming back junior year, just with the injuries, I didn't do club volleyball anymore, obviously. Was kind of wanting to do basketball and just stay healthy overall. And I think after I stopped playing club, and overall just the injuries that progressed through the rest of my high school career, the volleyball kind of started falling off, just because, me being healthy was kind of a question mark.
You had ACL surgery though?
Yes, I had ACL surgery. Okay. Yep, a repair.
Okay.
Rehabbed, and I came back my junior year of high school, and I came back great. I was
playing
healthy.
Basketball.
Yeah, playing basketball. I had a volleyball season. We won state in volleyball. Went into basketball, and I think we were runner up. We always lost to Helena High. That was where the girl I ended up playing basketball with in college, she was at Helena High, so we were in the same class together.
She was your nemesis.
Yeah, she was also one of my best friends. So nemesis when we played against each other, but buddies off the court. Even on the court, we'd be making jokes at each other. But I had a really successful year coming back. 2nd place in basketball. I won state high jump for Sentinel, and then we also won the team title that year. So it was great. Wow. I was on top of the world. We went into summer basketball and had a good club year, and then volleyball got rolling my senior year, and I was off to a really hot start. Playing all the way around and honestly just killing it and having a blast.
Outside or what position?
Outside, you bet. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that was where I like to play. Yep, that in the back row.
Yeah.
And then it was in a crosstown game. I came down kind of towards the end. I was probably in like the 4th set or something, and I just landed on my knee kind of weird again and felt some crunching and popping going on. And right away I knew, I'm like, something's just not right. And I played through the rest of the game, and it just felt a little off. And after that, we got an MRI, and nothing really came up in the MRI after they read
Same leg?
Yep, same leg. So the first one was on my left, and then this one was also my left knee. So yep, the left knee's been the problem the whole time.
Okay.
Got an MRI and didn't really see anything. And so they're like, we're gonna try to get you healthy or try to get through the club or through the rest of the season. You should be able to go come end of volleyball, hopefully. So that was the plan. I rehabbed and worked my butt off to try to get healthy to come back for state volleyball, and tried to come back, and my knee was just still bugging me. So we got another MRI, and they just didn't really see a whole lot. And I was like, I think like there's something going on. I mean, I know my body, I've had hurt knees before. And so we went in, we got a scope, and they did some cartilage cleanup and some other stuff, but didn't really see a whole lot in there. Just kind of tried to clean some things up that had potentially been damaged from my previous ACL. And so at that point, it was really tough. I mean, my senior year, I had to say goodbye to volleyball. I mean, after I got the scope, volleyball was done, but the hope was I'd be back for half of basketball and would still have track. And like, I guess one thing with injuries that I think a lot of people overlook or overall don't really see unless you yourself have been through them or those around you have been through them is just the mental side of things. My sophomore year, when I went through my ACL and was done with basketball and track, sitting on the sidelines is one of the hardest things, especially being a competitive athlete. I mean, anyone who knows me as a kid, I was the most competitive person you've ever met. So to sit there
you have two sisters. Are the three of you very competitive with each other?
Oh yeah, we were competitive growing up for sure. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
On everything from Monopoly to
oh yeah, I mean, no matter what it is, I mean, in cards, I was a terrible like cheater in those games when I was younger because I just wanted nothing to do but win. I mean, I was the worst. I'm not anymore, but growing up, I took competitiveness to another level. Yeah,
which is how you get to be a 3-sport athlete, though, too, right?
Totally,
is that you care that much. Yeah,
I
was the same.
Exactly. Yeah, I'd love to hear it. I'm not the only one.
Yeah, no, I still don't like to lose, but now I know how to compose myself.
Yes, exactly.
Inside, you're like, really? You didn't get Park Place, right? Like, that's not fair.
Feel it in there. Yeah. But yeah, so the competitive aspect, I mean, it's great when you're competing, but when you go through injuries, it's one of the hardest things because you still have that competitive spirit just burning inside of you, and you want nothing more than to be out there and sitting on the sidelines watching practice every day. I mean, it takes a toll, and I know I had a lot of hard times my sophomore year of high school and lots of down days and just was sad and constantly, I mean, all my friends I made were through sports and constantly like, you know, being there to support my teammates, but still going through it just because I miss it. And yeah, that was a really hard thing for me for sure.
What advice do you have to somebody who might be listening who's going through an injury right now and or has a teammate that's going through an injury? Because like, I know I have a good friend who played and she got sick during freshman year of college. And she's like, I was in my dorm room because I had mono. Nobody checked on me. I mean, this was pre, cell phones and all of that. But it's very isolating, right? To when everybody else gets to go do all the fun things and you're just now kind of just there, right?
Yeah, I mean, I found myself in high school, especially. I think everybody's young, still learning new things and overall injuries. At least on the teams I had, not a lot of girls had injuries like I did. So nobody really understood, I guess. So it's hard when you don't understand to empathize or, reach out to other people. But suggestions I have for teammates out there that have athletes that are going through it, like always check in on them. I mean, even now when I have teammates that are going through stuff or other girls I know on the basketball team, one of my good friends that I played in high school with and is actually playing basketball at Montana State. She just tore ACL and, send her a nice text and constantly checking in on her when I cross paths with her in the hallways and just always, reaching out and seeing how they're doing and giving them a shoulder to lean on because it's really hard too when you're the one experiencing the injuries. You do feel isolated and it can be hard to open up about how you're really feeling, and just being a supportive teammate and asking them how they're doing goes a long ways and means a lot more to them than you might think. So, and just always being conscious of them too. It can be tough when you have teammates who maybe have a frustrating practice or, maybe they rolled their ankle and they're complaining about, oh my God, I'm going to be out for the next game. And I'm just so frustrated. And, the girl has a season ending injury is sitting right there listening to it. And, just being mindful of what you say around those guys, because they're going through a lot and it's very sensitive. And so I know I found myself fighting back tears a lot of times. And sometimes people would say things that would almost trigger me a little bit. And yeah, you just got to be supportive and be there for your teammates.
Great advice. Yeah, I agree. Being sometimes walking a step or feeling like you're walking a step in somebody else's shoes so that you understand, like, yeah, we get into our own heads about what I'm not getting the playing time I wanted, or I'm not getting and not playing as well as I want, when somebody next to you would just give just the opportunity to get off the bench or to, and everybody's doing the same amount of work. So yeah, that's good advice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So now we're through junior year, and you're still getting recruited for 3 sports?
Oh, I guess, so my junior year of high school, I committed to play basketball for the Griz. And my plan was to do basketball and track. Volleyball, I think, just with the injuries, I mean, I can't quite exactly remember, but kind of slipped through the cracks, and I was okay with that. It was going to be a lot. I mean, we talked about it, like we could do it. And I mean, even now doing one sport, I'm like, oh my goodness, I couldn't imagine doing 3 in college. But so I'd committed to play basketball. And then senior year, I went on volleyball, had the knee thing, and got a scope and knee. And volleyball was done at that point. And the hopes were I could be back mid-season for basketball my senior year. And I mean, like I said, sophomore year, I thought it was tough, kind of going through the ups and downs of the injuries. But going through losing my senior season was a whole nother battle, a whole nother level of that stuff that I just didn't even know existed. And I was sadder than I had been and going through it, but I just kept thinking, this sucks right now, but we got basketball. We got basketball to get back for, and that's like my saving grace right now. Just keep my eyes focused on basketball. So then basketball rolled around, and first half of the season, my knee was still bugging me and just trying to get healthy and working my butt off to do whatever I could to get back. And a couple practices about mid-season in, when I was supposed to be cleared to start practicing again, I had the same knee pain I had back in volleyball. And I just remember thinking in my head, like, no way this is happening. Why is this happening to me? Why can't I be healthy and get a chance, And so we ended up going to another doctor out in Seattle and just get a second opinion, because why not? And also I just wanted a chance. My parents were able to give me that opportunity, which I'm very thankful for. So went out and got a second opinion. And we brought out the MRIs on a hard disk that I'd had through through the beginning of senior year when I had my injuries in volleyball. And we got out there, and he meets us and throws the discs in. And right away, he's like, oh, yeah, you got ACL or meniscus tear here that you can see in the MRIs. And so I'd had a meniscus tear that had been overlooked, which was a bummer. So that was kind of tough. And so we ended up getting surgery a little bit later, and he fixed up my meniscus and cleaned it up. And at that point, that was when, meniscus surgeries are about 4 months, and basketball was over, and so was track. And so that was a really hard thing for me. I mean, being a senior in high school with your friends you've grown up playing with forever. I mean, the girls that I played basketball and volleyball with, we were on the same team since 3rd grade, and they were some of my closest friends all through high school. And senior year was just really, really hard. Going through things yourself and then still trying to be a good teammate and support your friends all the way. Basketball was a tough one for me. And then track was also really hard. I remember like going to meets and choking back tears almost every time, like walking in there, because I wanted to go there and support my friends and support my boyfriend at the time. But it was tough. It was not fun. Lots of just like dark times for sure. But again, I had my sights set on college. I was like, I got basketball coming up in a few months, and that was what I kept looking forward to. And I'm like, even though this sucks, I got to keep working and keep fighting, because good things are going to come. Good things come to those who wait and those who are patient and those who work hard. And then I got to college, and I finally was like decently healthy and kind of slowly working back into things and playing with the girls, getting to meet the new team. I was with my mom as my coach and my sister on the team. And it was so much fun. I remember I forgot how much I missed playing basketball, getting back out into the open gyms and just feeling myself again. And my turnaround jumper was my go-to down on the post, and just kind of feeling like Shelby again. It was such a good feeling. I was loving it. And then we had our season going, and we had an exhibition game, I think against Lewis and Clark. And I think I got in for 4 minutes and had like 4 points or something and had a good little start. And then the next day in practice, we were warming up, and I felt my knee again bugging me in the same way it had before. And I just was like, oh my gosh, like I know that something's not right. And so we ended up getting some opinions and Missoula and more people looking at me. And it turned out that my ACL had stretched and my graft had failed. So essentially it was still intact, but it was so loose that it wasn't working. So I had to go get another ACL surgery done. So what I'd been looking to my freshman year in college, was again done. And I had to go get another ACL surgery.
So this is 2019, 20?
I believe, it was right at the end of 2019 or start of 2020. Yep.
Okay. So did you redshirt or?
I did. So yeah, I ended up redshirting my freshman year of basketball. Yes. Redshirted. Cool. And we went down to Florida and got an ACL done down there. The famous Dr. Andrews, he was great. And the whole facility down there was awesome. So again, I was back to square one of just being set back. And I mean, that was the story of my life. It just was so frustrating. Putting in work and working hard and wanting to get a chance and finally almost getting that chance. And then boom, another setback. And it created a lot of mental blocks for me. I mean, there's days that were hard. It's like, why am I working so hard when every time I have worked hard in the past, I don't get any reward and I only get set back further than I was before. And I mean, I think
how did you cope with that? Was it coaches? Did you have a sports psychologist, or how did you deal with that?
In the midst of all this, I was going through it, and there was a sports psychologist at our school. She has her own private practice, but then helps out with a lot of the athletes. And I remember my dad was a track coach, and one of his best pentathletes and heptathletes, which is what I'm now doing. But her at the time, once a week, she would go and meet with a sports psychologist. And my parents were kind of pushing for me to go, and I was refusing. I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go to therapy. That's not me. I don't need it. Like, I'm good. My dad was like, my best athlete goes to her and she says it's the best thing she's ever done. And I mean, that's another thing too, is I think there's a lot of stigma around therapy, and there shouldn't be. It is so beneficial in so many ways. And anyways, they tried to get me to go and I refused because I had that stigma mindset of, no, I'm not mentally weak. I don't need that. Like, I can handle things on my own. And I remember coming into practice one day, basketball practice, my trainer came up to me and he told me, he's like, you have a meeting with her today at so-and-so time and you have to go. It's non-negotiable. Like, if you don't, you're not coming to practice anymore. You can't go to lift. You have to go. I was like, okay. So I went and I met with her. And at first I was definitely, like I said, closed-minded to it. And I think that's a lot of the stigma that we as a society build around therapy. But through a few sessions, I started opening up more and talking to her. And I ended up going to her for, I think, maybe 2 years, maybe even 3. And it was honestly the best decision I ever made. And it wasn't even a decision I made for myself, but oh my gosh, she worked wonders. And overall, just the importance of therapy. I mean, you need people to talk to about stuff when you're going through it. You can't keep that all into yourself. I mean, it's a lot to take on. And especially as like a young athlete and a young kid, going through that kind of setback and injuries and adversity. She helped me through a lot of my struggles, both athletically and personally. And I couldn't be more thankful for what she's helped me become who I am today. And now I can deal with things on my own. And she's great.
It's interesting because that same childhood you did with a lot of sports all the time. We've always had coaches, yet when we get to that place where like, oh, I can't figure something out, I agree with you. Like, it feels wrong that I shouldn't be able to figure it out. And I feel like it's somehow this, like, I'm an athlete, I can muscle through this, right? I can just, no pain, no gain kind of mentality versus, all the best athletes, entrepreneurs, you name it, have a coach, have a business coach, have a personal trainer, have that's how they get the results they want. And that's when I meet with clients now too. I'm like, I'm Switzerland. Like, I got no skin in the game except for to help you do your best. And like, imagine a stadium full of cheerleaders that every time you take, the field, I'm there cheering you on, trying to help you get out of your own way. Like, who doesn't want or need that, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
And there are certain things with parents, right, who mean well and may say exactly what I say or what your therapist would say, but but that's my mom. Yeah, but that's my dad. Like, it comes with attachments that, well, that's just what she thinks, right? And when it comes from this neutral place, how powerful it can be. We're like, really? You think I'm that good? Really? I can do that? You kind of like allow any of the, the hangups to fade away and just focus on the message, which is so beautiful.
Totally. I mean, like, going through all of it, you have, like you said, my mom and my dad and people around me, like, I'm here for you, Shelby. Like, I know you're going through it. You got a lot going on. And I always think, what do I really have a lot going on? Like, other people have it worse than me. And yeah, talking to her, she's like, you are going through it, girl. Like, take some credit to yourself, like, it's okay. Like, you got a lot on your plate. And just to get a new perspective on things, because sometimes you get stuck in a rut and it's really hard to see when you're in the rut, but having someone from an outside perspective looking in to maybe see things that you don't see, to help you solve your problems or work through things. It's just a great new perspective, and overall someone to just talk to about things,
Mm-hmm. And you don't end up on the podium without belief in yourself.
100%. Right? Belief is, in my opinion, one of the most important things in sports. If you don't believe you can, there's your first problem.
Yeah. So let's go from, you've had this now 3 surgeries.
Yeah. So this was my 4th one. The ACL was my 4th one. Yeah. So I'm at 4 at this point. Yeah. So freshman year in college, got my ACL redone and was on the road to rehab again, planning to come back for my sophomore year. And along the way, I can't remember at one point, but I ended up trying to come back again, had more problems, and I got one more surgery. So I ended up racking up 5, and the last one was a meniscus. And then my sophomore year, COVID hit, and there was a coaching change and just kind of lots of stuff going on. And basketball was just not working out at that point. And it was not fun to have to say goodbye to that the way I did, but it was just kind of the circumstances of the situation. And I had the opportunity to either finish out my school or try to go keep playing sports. And I knew, again, the competitive spirit I have and the kind of person I am. I wasn't done playing sports. I was never going to give up until I absolutely had no chance, until all my opportunities were done, all the doors were closed. And I remember just thinking, I'm like, I don't want to tear my ACL again. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do, if I wanted to maybe try volleyball or stick with track or try track or, stick out with basketball. And I thought about it a lot before I really made any decisions. And I don't really know when or why it came to me, but I just remember kind of thinking track. I mean, I was already on the roster my freshman year at U of M and was planning to do track, but obviously was never healthy and able to compete. So I was like, this is, I think, what I want to do. I mean, my dad did track and I've always been good at it and I always loved track. It just was an option that I never fully pursued on its own. I was always attached basketball and track on the side or, And I looked at, kind of some options of maybe where to go. And I went on a visit to NDSU and then I went on one here to Montana State. And at the end of the day, it came down to me as just, I wanted to stay close to home. I'm born and raised here in Montana. I absolutely love Montana. I love all my family and friends I have here. And I have in the future, I want to end up staying here, and just connection wise and everything. I was like, it just makes sense to stay here. And what better place to go than where my dad went and competed and had a successful college career as a Hall of Famer at Montana State. And his old coach was, honestly, it was his last year when I got here, so I never had the privilege to work underneath him, but he took me on my visit and everything. And I decided I wanted to come to Montana State. And I got here and was welcomed with open arms and got to training. And for once in my life, my knees were finally healthy and were not a problem. And I was like, oh, finally, this is my chance. I've been waiting out my sophomore year, out my senior year, out my freshman and sophomore year of college, my junior year, finally a chance to compete, an opportunity. And about a couple months in, I started having shin splints. And at the time, I didn't really know exactly what they were. I was like, oh, my shins kind of hurt, but it's probably fine, and kind of trained through it. And I just went down a road of there's no return. I beat them up and kept trying and trying because I wanted nothing more than to be back out there. And my shins just got to a tough spot to where I had to take a lot of time off to get them back healthy. So my junior year, I redshirted my indoor and then tried to compete outdoor, but just, again, was not what I was hoping for. And it was really frustrating, honestly, knowing that I'm a very capable athlete and a talented high jumper. And I, in high school, I jumped 5'7", and I think my junior year of college, I don't think I ever jumped over 5'3". Wow. And that was really hard. Just knowing that I'm not where I was at, my body's not healthy, and I just so badly want to compete at a high level and just can't due to, injuries and setbacks. And overall, I think through all the things I went through, I definitely kind of lost care in myself. I was not having the best lifestyle or habits, was maybe out drinking a little more than usual, enjoying that side of things because it was easy to enjoy that when track and sports weren't going well for me. Staying up late or just overall the self-care that you need to be a successful athlete, I was not well balanced in. And after my conference meet, my junior year here at Montana State, I remember my dad, he looked at me, he's like, we got to get back on track. He's like, we got to get fit again. We got to get things cleaned up and we're going to come back. And I looked at him and I was like, I'm on board. Let's do it. And so that summer I went home and I was riding the bike and working out almost every day, eating a clean diet, like overall just fixing up everything that was not in check and that needed to be there if I was going to be successful. And then my senior year here, so the year after that, came back and I did a lot of work on myself. And I thought I was always a pretty well-rounded person and this and that, but I really did a lot of work on myself and it's helped me become who I am today. I stopped eating junk food all the time or, eating out. I love to cook. So I eat at home almost every night and make healthy, clean meals, try to pack meals to school, going to bed at a reasonable hour because sleep is so important. It's one of the easiest things you can do to be successful as an athlete. And it's also one of the most important aspects of just a healthy lifestyle overall. Like when I'm behind on my sleep, I can tell and it messes with me. So getting my sleep back, staying in on the weekends rather than going out and hanging out with friends and maybe drinking, I was staying in and journaling or foam rolling or visualizing and thinking about track, just getting my mind right. So I worked on all those and it sucked that year. I still battled shin splints the whole way through and still didn't get a chance to really compete. Our indoor season, it was my first pentathlon ever. And so for those of you that know, in the pentathlon, it's 5 events. You do the 60-meter hurdles, followed by the high jump, then the shot put, then the long jump, and the 800. So you do a little bit of everything. And I had not really trained for it at all. I honestly had a coach that wasn't super helpful. I feel like every day he kind of sent me to the bike and was like, just go ride the bike. And it was tough too. Coming in, I didn't have the best coaching experience, especially through all the years of PT and injuries. I had a terrible relationship with the bike. It was the thing I hated the most.
Right?
And I think for any athletes out there who have had ACLs or other surgeries themselves and have had to be on the bike, they know exactly what I'm talking about. You hate that thing. You want nothing more. Like you would rather do anything than ride the bike. And that's where I lived for my first 2 years here at Montana State. Every practice I'd go in there because I couldn't run with my shins. I couldn't jump. Rode the bike to stay in shape and try to train as best as I could and tried to modify things. And overall, I just kind of got like tossed to the side and didn't really get the attention or coaching I needed. And it was frustrating knowing that, like, again, I was a capable athlete and just needed someone to believe in me and want to develop me and not really having that. And anyway, so that my senior year, I competed in my first pentathlon ever. And it did not go too hot. I struggled in a lot of the events, just again, lack of training and whatnot. And I think I ended up finishing 10th at conference out of 13 girls. So not that great. And then went on to outdoor and pretty much didn't compete all of outdoor because my shins were so bad. And then this past summer, I was in a boot all summer, back to rehabbing and getting things right. And I met with some really good PTs and people who got me back on track. And this past year, we had a coaching switch. And when I got my new coach, Craig, this year, it was everything I could have hoped for and more. He got me on a great training schedule, believed in me most importantly, and was like, we got this and we're going to kick ass. And I spent the whole first semester just rehabbing my shins. So I didn't get to train at all. I didn't get a run. I didn't get a jump. So going into this pentathlon this past weekend, I had about 6 weeks of actual training. Like 3 of which were spent recovering from another pentathlon. So I had about 4 weeks where we really got after it. We dialed in our hurdles. We worked on high jump as much as we could without jumping, just because my shins get so bad with it. And all the other
What does that look like? How do you work on the high jump without jumping?
Exactly. It's pretty difficult. I mean, visualization's my go-to. He gets me videos and I just think in my head what I want to do and maybe try to run a few approaches. But overall, it's very difficult to practice high jump without being able to jump. So he worked with me and adapted to me and gave me, everything I needed to be successful. And for the first time in my life this past year training, I mean, my shins were actually decently healthy. And it felt so good to be able to go run a tempo workout and go jump. And the next day I'm not feeling like my shin's going to snap when I step on it, and it was just like, wow, like hard work finally starting to pay off. And I had a few meets with I ran some hurdles, did some high jump, threw some shot put. And I was like, okay, we got a chance at winning this thing and we can really do what we've been talking about and dreaming about past few years and overall just getting back to sports over the past 6 years.
So what's your favorite event in the pentathlon?
Yeah, I would say it's probably the high jump. I mean, it's the one I was always good at growing up and love, and I still love it. But I also, the hurdles, I really like the hurdles. It's an event I never got to do growing up because my younger sisters snapped their arms, but I've really learned to love it. And yeah, the hurdles have been a fun one, and I'm excited to keep improving in them. But
amazing.
Yeah, so I came in ranked number 1 in the pentathlon into our Big Sky Conference Championships this past weekend, and I just went in with the mentality knowing that I could do it. I mean, I had a target on my back, and I'd been an underdog all these past years, nobody really believing in me or seeing my athletic abilities. And I was like, it's my time to shine. Like, I've been at the bottom for so long, it's my time to be back on top. And so I went in there with a positive attitude and just focused, and I competed in all the events and put a great pentathlon together. And at the end of the day, was able to win it. And I was so proud of myself. And it was just such an amazing feeling. Like, all my hard work over the past 6 years, all the injuries, all the setbacks, all the mental defeats I faced, finally to overcome that and surpass that was just unreal.
Was your family there?
They were, yeah.
Aww,
I had my mom and my dad and my older sister, and my younger sister, unfortunately, she couldn't get work off, but she was watching from home and cheering me on from home. And
Aww.
I had my whole family there. So it was amazing.
Aww. I love that ending.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, and this is life, right? Like, this is how kind of everything goes. And that's what I like to say. I mean, it's wonderful to think, oh, and then you put a bow on it. And then, the next opportunity and the next up and downs, but all the skills and all the resilience and all the hard work, like, that is who you are now. And whatever you pivot to when you're done high jumping and, pentathlon, it will, it's a part of who you are, which I think is so beautiful and so important for when I talk to young athletes and they're like, yeah, I'm going to be a pro basketball player. And you're like, okay, that's awesome. And 0.001% will get to do that. So the rest of us are going to learn these skills. And again, not all of them will be the ones we want to learn. And we're not always going to have a great coach. We're not always going to be healthy. We're not always going to get the roster spot we want. But if we are resilient, and I love the piece you talk about and that's a lot of the work I do with athletes around visualization, journaling,
getting clear. Journal.
Yeah, so let's talk about that, because getting clear on what you want. I mean, there's a huge difference between like, well, I want to win, and how specific do you get when you are writing down in your journal about what it is you're trying to create?
Yeah, so I guess I have a lot of journals. That was also one thing when I was working on myself. I really got into journaling, which is something I never did before. And I love it because it's another form of therapy. If you can't talk to somebody, you can talk to yourself. And then you can go back and reread things as you go along your journey or whatever you're going through. But when I read back through my journal of about this time last year, I was writing down things that I accomplished this year. I was writing goals of, I want to win indoor pentathlon at the Big Sky Conference Championships. I want to go to nationals. I want to do this, want to do that. And while they were not things I accomplished last year when I was writing them, they're all things that I've accomplished this year and more. And I mean, you just you want to win, but you got to make specific goals and, more importantly, attainable goals. And you make those goals. Well, how are we going to get there? The steps we got to do. We got to go to practice and show up every day. I got to go and put an hour outside of practice into PT so that I can stay healthy to achieve my goals. It's not just making goals, but it's making a plan of how you're getting there and what you got to do every day. I remember last year I had a calendar up on my board on my room. I made a calendar of days until conference. I remember every day looking at that and thinking, okay, I got 30 days. Every day I better make the most of it. Today I'm going to wake up early and go do PT and rehab. And then the next day, tonight I'm going to foam roll and just get my body feeling good to go tomorrow. It's like, it's one thing to, I guess a quote that I like is, don't talk about it, be about it. It's one thing to say, I want to be a pro athlete, I want to do this, but you can say all those things, but until you put in the work and all the things behind the scenes that people don't always see, you're never going to achieve those. And yeah, don't talk about it, be about it, and show others that you're working your ass off every day in the gym when you don't have to be, and you're in the training room getting treatment when you don't have to be. You're in the weight room doing extra PT or this and that when you don't have to be, but because you want to be, even though nobody's telling you to.
We went back and looked at Shelby's career to this point, right? And you've won some state titles too, so I don't take those. But even if you lump in the state titles with standing on the podium, what percentage of the time is getting to be on the top of that podium, right? Very little. Right?
Yeah, very, very little.
So much of it is all of the moments before that. And to your point, like I say, our brains don't know the difference between us thinking about something and us actually having already done it. So you writing down and getting clear, and even though it was 2 years out, I want to be on top of that podium. I want to win the state championship, the conference championship, go to nationals. Your brain starts going, oh, and then who's the Shelby that shows up at the 5 a.m. PT? She's the one that is working for it daily, even though we may be willing to delay gratification and it may not happen for 2 years. I don't care. I'm here day in and day out until it happens, right?
Exactly. I like how you phrase that, for sure.
Beautiful. So much fun. All right. Well, I know, speaking of busy schedules, I so appreciate you taking the time to be with me today and to share this. I think there's so many, I know there are a ton of kids who are doing the multi-sport thing, and there are headwinds along the way, and hearing your story of resilience and grit and gratitude and attitude of just, I love your way of being about it. Is you are being about it. You're not just talking about it. You're doing the hard work. So kudos to you. Congratulations. I'm so excited to continue to cheer for you now. I'm actually going to be up in Montana in the middle of May to do a talk. So maybe you'll get a chance to say hello if you're around.
Yeah, I'd love that. You'll have to let me know.
Okay. I would love that too. But before I let you go, we like to ask all of our guests this question. You can answer it with a word. You can answer it with a paragraph. I don't care. But how would you finish the sentence? The best athletes I know do this.
I would say the best athletes do things when nobody else is watching. I think there's a lot of work. It's not just, you don't accomplish being the best basketball player by practicing in your 2-hour practice slot every day. You got to put in work behind the scenes, whatever that is, extra shooting, extra rehab, extra this, extra that. And you have to be motivated outside of your required times. And that comes from personal drive and just wanting it that bad.
Do you feel like you were born with that? Or is that something that, was it modeled to you? Was it what your siblings were doing? How did you get that?
Yeah, I think it was something, honestly, a lot of the person I am today, especially the athlete I am today, my motivation, my mental strength, came from my injuries and everything I've gone through. One of my quotes I had taped up on my mirror going through all of it was the Virginia basketball coach who they lost in the tournament to the 16 seed, first time in history. And then they came back and won it the next year. But he talks about adversity, and he says adversity gives you a ticket to a place that nobody else can go. And it's how you use that ticket that, determines the rest. And I think all my injuries and everything I went through and everybody else out there going through injuries, they might suck and you might think, why is this happening to me? But you got to take that as a ticket to go to a place that nobody else can go and build yourself up and work back to what you can accomplish and more.
Tony Bennett, love him. Yes.
He's the best.
Pressure is a privilege, right? The fact that I even get to be here is a gift. The fact that I get the chance to try to do this, and what an amazing opportunity it is. Yeah. Every day, doing the hard work, doing the little things, showing up, getting the extra shots in. That's the ones that are willing to grind, but don't see it as a grind. They see it as a gift.
Exactly.
Beautifully said. Well, thank you, Shelby. What's next?
Of course. So now we're under our outdoor season. So I'll be kind of training and competing through the rest until we have our outdoor conference championships. We're actually hosting them here in Bozeman. So I'm super excited about that. I'll be at our home track. And then hopefully after that, nationals. That's the goal this season. So we will see.
I love it. Write that down.
Oh, it's written down. Already did.
Oh, don't you worry.
Yeah.
All right. Well, go Bobcats. Really, really excited to meet you and spend time with you. And thank you so much.
Of course. Well, thank you again for having me on. I had a blast. Thank you.
Yay. So parents, athletes, anyone listening to this, listen to this story of resilience. And this is what it's all about. And these are the tools that we all need, whatever you're going through. It might be on the field or off the pitch or in your personal life, but we all have different seasons of life. And I think it's when we lean into those that we really figure out who we are. And like Shelby said, when she went through that time of really doing the work, it's easy to bypass it. It's not relevant to me. But when you're willing to do the work and really find out what it is I want and what am I willing to do for it, that's when all the growth happens. So thank you so much. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you soon. Hey there. So talking to Shelby Schweyen, it's always fun for me being from Montana to get to connect with people from home and having the conversation with Shelby. I played against her mom. Her mom was an All-American, a Gatorade All-American, and ended up playing at University of Montana. We didn't compete all the time, but her mom was fairly legendary in Montana, so I always knew who she was. And it was fun when I saw her name pop up of how well she was doing. She's one of 3 girls to talk about. I'm always curious as to, what's behind the curtain. How did it get made? So it was fun to have this conversation with Shelby, and hers was not a straight line.
By no means. It took turns, it took diagonals, it took one step forward, 2 steps back. And, listening to the podcast, it was at times almost like you listen to the story and you're like, no way, another injury. And you feel for it, but she had such a good attitude about it, and the way that she consistently stepped up and refused to give up on not necessarily being a volleyball player, basketball player, track athlete. It was, I'm an athlete. I'm someone who is competitive, and I want to keep doing this for as long as I can. And that got her to continue to overcome these injuries. So let's start there with, her ability to overcome injuries. What was something that you see in Shelby that you wish you could almost put into myself, put into yourself, and put into your athletes of how to overcome these injuries and hardships?
Yeah, I think grit is the word that comes to mind most readily, and that is something that's easy to say, but it's hard to do. And I always look at life as the perspective of when I'm going through something bad. I always try to project, okay, what is this story that I'm going to be telling about what happened in this moment 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now? Generally, whatever you're going through in the moment, eventually it just becomes a little footnote, and sometimes you don't even you go right over it. But when you're having that third ACL repair or that that traumatic event going on in your life, it feels like this is everything. I'm never overcoming this. And I love the story of resilience. I love the story of being willing to acknowledge that this is hard and I'm going to overcome this. And I think that's what she has in spades.
Yeah, absolutely. You saw it so many times, and the just the refusal to give up. You see so many athletes, and she went through 4 surgeries. Was it 4 surgeries before the age of 20 or 21? And that's really difficult, and that's really hard at that age to say, this is who I am, and I want to stick with it, and I want to keep going. And I was blessed in my college career not to have too many injuries. I had really one, that kept me out for any type of games. And it sucks. It's so hard to be injured. And I think one of the things that she talked about is supporting teammates who are injured. And, just being mindful of, for athletes sitting on the bench, and there's people who physically cannot play, and then there's other people that come out after 80 minutes of a 90-minute game and sit down on the bench and go, oh, how is the coach taking me out? This sucks. I don't even want to play. Like, I don't want to play for this guy. And having such a negative attitude, you're sitting next to someone that might be killing to walk. They might be wanting to walk, and they can't even do that right now. So being mindful of that, I think, was a really good piece of advice that Shelby had for athletes. And, maybe she learned some of that through playing multiple sports growing up and learning those lessons. And something that we talk about all the time is the benefit of athletes playing multiple sports growing up. And she was a triathlete. She had three sports, 4 sports that she played growing up, and 3 sports in high school. And, she had some injuries with that? Do you think that the multiple sports thing was a reason for the injuries, or do you think that it was maybe one of the things that helped her continuously come back?
That's a good question. And I think it is the $1,000,000 question, because we do talk out of both sides of our mouth, and that you should be a multi-sport athlete. But at the rate at which everybody is competing in each of their individual sports, and then you compound it with multiple sports, who knows whether it was too much too soon. I mean, a 3-sport athlete from the 70s and 80s isn't what a 3-sport athlete is today, just based on, actually, I was having a call this morning with a woman, and her freshman in high school up in South Dakota, all the high school athletes have to be at the gym at 5:45 in the morning, and they lift for an hour, then they train for an hour with the team, and then he plays 2 sports, so he's going to a second sport. So from every day during the summer from 6 to 9 a.m., he's got to be at the school. And she said, and he has a job, so then he has to go straight from that to the job, right? He has a full-time job already just trying to be an athlete. So the balance of keeping healthy, while we always say, well, if you really wanted it, you'd work harder, but the body also needs to rest. It also needs some downtime. The brain needs to rest. It needs to recover. So yeah, some people are genetically gifted in that they have the right body type, that they just don't, those guys that run those ultra marathons, they can run 100 miles and their body doesn't hurt. And some people will run, a 10K and won't be able to walk for a week. I mean, obviously repetition helps, but still about just injury. Some people are more prone, and so it can be the combination. But regardless, her approach to not being, some people by the second or third surgery would be like, well, clearly this isn't for me. I'm just going to throw in the towel. And I admire her hard work and her resilience and her ability to say, you know what, I'm going to keep going. And then to get to the result that she got to this year is super fantastic.
Yeah, it was, the podcast wasn't necessarily it was a bit of a story of her whole athletic career. And, I became attached to the story. And at the end of the podcast, I was like, yes, we did it. We did it.
Hero's journey.
Yeah, exactly. It was really awesome. And I think the timing of it, was really great that you were able to shoot the podcast with her a few days after she got a big win. And, part of the things that got her there she talks about her habits and her routines, that she went through a phase where it was like she was injured and she was partying a little bit more, drinking. And then when she came back the next year, she started to influence habits and routines, which you just did a workshop on, not too long ago, a couple weeks time now, on, the daily rituals and the daily habits and developing routines to be successful. So, how do you think that influenced her on coming back stronger?
Yeah, for me, it's not about being an athlete. It's about how do we do life. We all have habits and routines. And I like to say, if you think you don't have habits, your lack of habits are habits, right? So, well, I can't go to bed early. Well, why can't you go to bed early? Well, I'm too tired. Well, why are you too tired? Well, I stayed up till 2 a.m. It becomes a vicious cycle, right? And if you just backed it up an hour, and then you backed it up another half an hour, and you started getting up at 5 a.m, now all of a sudden going to bed at 9:30 or 10 is not hard, but it's because you've decided, I'm not going to get up at 5 or 4 or 6, that you say there's no way I can go to bed earlier. So what are the choices we're all making? And that's human nature. We say one thing, we do another. We say we want to get better at writing or getting better business or learning how to play a guitar, but we do the opposite. And then we just say, oh, I guess it wasn't meant to be. And what I think is fun is working with, why I ended up going with peak performance is, anybody can be a peak performer. It's a choice that we make on the daily. Does it mean we do it perfectly? No. But it means you're willing to go, gosh, that didn't go how I thought. What could I do differently tomorrow? And yeah, the course that I just taught from the chapter in the book about tools and toolboxes. And again, half the people in the course, we're not athletes. They're people that are like, I'm trying to figure out, my kids are graduating. I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to be doing in this next chapter of my life, because it's applicable to us all. And again, I don't do it perfectly ever. But I try to be aware of it, so that when I make a decision of like, okay, I'm going to stay up late tonight, and I'm not going to get up to do that 6 a.m. workout. I had 1 too many glasses of wine today. That's not happening. Yeah. It happens. Like, that's life. And I get to make a different choice tomorrow. So being kind to yourself. And that's what I think Shelby has in spades too, is she's good about obviously not beating herself up over what she, a choice she made or something that happened to her that may have been out of her control, but said, no, I'm going to focus on what I can control. And by journaling and by setting goals and by getting clear on what it is she wanted, I 100% believe that's how she created that podium moment for herself.
Yeah, totally. And it was awesome to see it happen. And it was awesome to see her influence the things that you talk about. And then you guys got to bounce the ball back and forth. And, she got to talk about it from an athlete perspective, and you got to talk about it from a coaching perspective. And, another, very good conversation, enlightening conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sitting here and spitballing with me. I love it.
That's my favorite part.
Great. Well, thanks for listening. Like, share, and let us know who you want to hear from. If there's somebody, we're getting ready to think about fall 2024. We're going on a little hiatus here, but it's going to be fun. A couple months, we're going to be starting some new episodes, and let us know who you'd like to hear me interview or hear what questions you have. We always love getting better at what we're doing.
Yeah.